Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today I think we're going to do a little fabricating project in the shop, and my goal is I want to replace this wooden workbench. This bench has been in the shop for quite some time. This is kind of a secondary bench. My gray bench over there is kind of my primary bench. Honestly, this bench a lot of times gets used as a catch-all. It gets used for storage up underneath it, but there are definitely times in the shop when I clean this thing off and it does get used for various projects. One such activity that we did recently was we had a scraping class here in my shop. And when I did, I had 10 students in here. Everybody needs bench space to work on, and this bench gets used along with my regular bench over there, my welding bench over here, and I got another metal bench that I can bring in here for the class. The problem that I've got is that this wooden bench, when we're doing scraping, we're doing a lot of, moving back and forth on it, and it just kind of, I wouldn't call it, just flip-flopping around, but it's not as sturdy as it really needs to be when we got 3 or 4 people around this table scraping. So what I want to do is actually fabricate a new table to replace this one, make it out of steel where it will actually be more rigid and be a little bit more up to the task when we have our scraping classes, because I do have another scraping class coming up here in about a month, and we'll be doing some more down the road, so this is something that can be useful. And one other thing that I really kind of want to do is I use this table for storage. I'm going to kind of incorporate a little bit better storage solution, put some shelving up underneath this bottom area to give me just a few more horizontal surfaces to store stuff on because they also come in handy. I've got a good bit of angle iron. It's outside that I picked up a while back from Stan Zinkowski. He was finishing up a job over in Alabama, and they had a bunch of steel left over, and I was able to acquire that. So I've got some material to work with, and I have actually kind of sketched out what I want to do here. These tables are 4 foot wide, 6 feet long, and they're about 37.5 inches tall. At least that's the height of the bench over there, and I think I'm gonna make this bench match it. This bench is actually a little bit shorter, but make it the same height. I think that'll help me out for other things down the road. A couple of little points here. One thing that I like to do with these workbenches is I like to have the bottom cross piece down here where I can put a pallet jack up underneath it and just pick up the whole bench and move it. So we will do that. This bench here was actually originally made a little bit shorter, but I didn't take the pallet jack into consideration when I built this, and there wasn't enough room between the floor and this bottom piece to put the pallet jack up. And because of that, it sits on some 2x4 blocks because I move this table quite frequently. So that's one of the things I want to be able to do is do that. Another thing that I'm going to incorporate into this is I'm going to put leveling feet on all 4 corners because the concrete slab in my shop, while it's pretty flat, it's not flat. Few concrete floors are truly flat. So, you set it up in one place, you get it all shimmed up and level, and then you move it 6 inches, and now you got to re-shim it. So with leveling feet, I can easily adjust those anytime I move the table around. And have it where the table is actually sitting solid on all 4 feet and not wobbling around. So that's the project. I'm going to haul some angle iron in here, and I've already got some sketches with some dimensions and stuff, and we're going to build us a welding table. So this is the steel that I've got. It's basically 2 inch by 2 inch and then 1/4 inch thick angle iron. So we're going to make it out of. I'm going to start by cutting my 4 legs. They need to be 33 3/4 inches long according to my calculations to make room for the top as well as the adjusting feet on the bottom. I've got it up against the door. If it was a 1/2 inch longer, I'd have to raise the door, but it's perfect for this length, at least on this first one. As I cut them off, they'll be shorter. But let me go ahead and get 4 of these legs cut out, and then we'll start working on the stretchers to go between them. See, I need to turn on my phase converter. And we'll let the marble saw cut across there. Cut number 1. I'm just going to double check my measurement. I'm going to set that right on the edge of the blade. And I can fine adjust my length here. Clamp that down and we'll make another pass. This marble saw will also make angled cuts, like I'm doing right here. I got a 45 I'm going to cut on these cross pieces so we can put them all together good. So just tilt it over to the proper angle, and when cutting the angles, I really need my vise on this side. We got the bevel on it. This works just fine. All right, I got my main pieces cut here. You've got 4 legs. These are the 4 stretchers, 2 on each side that go across the short side, and 2 on each side that goes across the long side. We'll be putting more pieces in here as we build this up, but I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get this first part, the main frame part of it all put together, tacked together, and then we'll start putting in our shelvings and stuff like that after we get everything built. So let me, I'm gonna put all this over on the other bench and get just the parts I need to start working on right now. We'll get this laid out and start tacking it together. Got everything kind of just sitting in place where I want it. So these will be the end pieces. These are the legs. This will be sitting on the floor. I am going to be putting a plate up underneath the bottom with a leveling foot. That'll come in later. When I'm laying out stuff square on my table, one nice thing is I got a welding table that has nice square sides, nice smooth sides. This isn't just cut on a torch or something like that. This is a really nice piece. So I lay one edge up here on this one square. I lay out my leg down here bottom on the bottom square. And it kind of helps me just lay things out and keep them square. And I haven't even got out any of my actual squares over there to check anything, but I've already just laid everything out. This bottom piece needs to be up 1 inch from the bottom piece to give me the clearance from my pallet jack. The one on the top needs to be flush with the top. After I kind of got everything, I checked my dimensions here to make sure they're parallel with one another on the outside edges. So just, measuring across this way. And then I also measure the diagonals there, and same thing over here to make sure they're the same. And if those 2 measurements are the same, that tells you that it is indeed square, and it is. So I'm ready to go ahead and just tack this piece together. And once that's done, we will basically do the same thing to the other end piece, and then we'll put them all together one piece at a time here. All right, let me get my welding stuff set up. I'll probably go ahead and take some clamps and just clamp everything down so it doesn't move, and we'll get this welded up. I think we're ready to tack all this together. I did go back around. I actually took it apart and I cleaned up all the paint off of all the areas that I'm going to weld up, just to make sure we get good welds. I reset everything back up, checked it for squareness. Everything is good to go. Right now, my goal is I just want to get this tacked together. I want to get some good tacks in place, and we will weld it all together later once we get everything kind of where it needs to be. But in case I need to move something around or bump it or whatever, we're just tacking right now. I'm just going to put a little tack in each corner. Make sure I get a good ground on these. All right, that is good enough for now. I'm going to get the other one set up and do the same thing on it, and then we'll put them together. I'll do the other end piece off camera. So this barely fits up here on my welding table. And I've got it sitting flat, so this welding table is flat, relatively flat anyway, so I feel good about that. I have squared up my edges with some squares. I really can't get my diagonals measured because of my clamps are kind of in the way, but it's square. It's going to be square enough anyway. I've got some little spacers up underneath the bottom to keep all my spacers the same height. These are just all flush with the top up top. I think we're ready to tack it all in place now. So let me get my welder back out. I'm gonna go around this thing and weld her up real good in all the places. And I think we will be ready to, once it's tacked together, to weld this thing up good. And then we can move on to the next step. Like I said, I want to put some shelving and stuff in here, so we'll do that next. All right, I think we got this tacked in place. I think what I'm gonna do now is get this laying down on the floor where I can weld flat rather than having to weld vertical. It just makes for better welds for me. So that's what I'll do, and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, I got this laying on the ground now, and I'm checking my diagonals. It's about 75 3/8. 75 and maybe just a tad shy of 3/8, but pretty darn close. All right, I'm going to do it this way. It's 54 3/4. I've already done this. I'm just double checking it. I had to do some tweaking to get it where it's square and all the way around, 74 3/4. And then I want to check it in this plane as well. There's basically, we got a cube here, so I'm just checking it on 3 sides. And that's about 80 1/8. I think we're square. I'm gonna go ahead and just get this thing welded to size now. I want to just double check this. 67 1/4. Yep, we're good. All right, let me get suited back up here, and I'm going to put good welds on all these places that I can get to. All right, I think I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and we'll weld the next side here. So let me kind of back up here a little bit. Check my diagonals. Do another flip. Well, I finished welding up all of the main frame there on the floor, and I got it back up on the workbench here again where I can get it down flat. And now I want to start putting in my shelving and stuff that I talked about before. The first one is I want a shelf that's just a complete shelf all the way across, about 6 inches gap here. So I've already cut some more pieces, and I'm gonna go ahead and get these welded on in here. I'll go around and get those done. I'm gonna do all the way around, then I'm gonna do another little shelf down here with 2 levels in it. So I'm working on that right now. Let's get it knocked out. So I want to put an upright in here about 2 feet in from the back. Then I'm going to put another shelf in here just to give me a little more storage space and have a higher area in here to pile stuff. So to do this, I kind of notched out the top up there. See where it'll kind of, the web will go behind it and it'll come down face here. I've got this on one of my Fireball Tool Mega Squares, and I'm just going to tack it in place here. Well, guys, I went ahead and just kind of finished this thing up off camera, and the main reason I did it off camera is that my daughter, who is a professional photographer, she was shooting a wedding this weekend, and she had a problem with one of her cameras, and she came and borrowed my camera that I used to shoot with so that she could go and use it to do her shoot that she was doing. So I didn't have a camera for a little while in the shop yesterday afternoon on a Saturday afternoon. But let me just kind of catch up. We went ahead and finished kind of welding up all the framework in here. Down here in the bottom, I basically welded a little plate into the bottom of the angle iron, and it had a hole through it that I welded a 1/2 inch nut into, and then these little adjustable feet screw up into that. And then I painted it. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But you can kind of see the finished product. I don't have my leveling feet perfectly leveled up yet, although it's not rocking right now. But the nice thing, again, with the concrete floor not always being perfectly level, you can level this up wherever it sits. So now next is really putting the shelving in here and putting the top on here. I think what I'm going to do is I've got my workbench over here this is replacing, and it has some plywood on here. I'm going to use the plywood off of this table. I'm going to disassemble this table down to its components. I'll salvage what wood I can out of it, but it's going to go away. We'll take the plywood, and I'm going to use the plywood primarily for shelving on this one, and I'm going to put get some 2x6s or 2x8s or something like that and put across the top, have a little bit thicker wooden top on this. That's my game plan. So I'm going to get over here on this workbench, and we're going to start tearing it down, and we'll get our shelving put in on this one. All right, this top needs to come off. I think I just got it nailed down with some nails. All right. Well, we're moving along on this bench project. I've got some strips of plywood that were cut and put in here for my shelving. So all that's kind of in place. I'm working on my top now. As I mentioned before, I'm going to use 2-inch thick wood material up here. And I've just got some 2x10s. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting them down, and we're just actually bolting these down to the table. All right, let's get that over there. I'm going to line these ends up on one end, kind of squeeze them together, and I'll probably come in here with a saw and trim off the other end, make sure everything's flush because I had to cut these to length. And what I'm using here is a self-tapping screw. This is a Tex self-drilling screw, wood to metal, number 12 diameter. And basically, it's just a threaded screw with a flat head on top. I am pre-drilling these though. I mean, technically you can do all your drilling with the bit here, but I find it easier just to run a drill bit down in here first. So I'm just gonna come in here, I'm gonna drill a hole. There we go. Now these are threaded for going into metal, so this is, but you don't have to run a tap. Basically the screw becomes your tap and everything. We'll just drive it on in. And I'm just countersinking that just a little bit. We're going to do this all the way across the top and get a nice top on this bench. Go. Do that for all of them. I'm doing 2 screws per board, and I'm doing it in 3 places. There's a total of 6 screws holding down each 10-inch board. I've got my tabletop all screwed down now. When I did it, I lined up all the ends of the boards on that end. This end, I mean, they're 1/8 of an inch off in different ones. Some of them are right on, some are a little bit off. I'm just going to trim it up. I took a piece of just a straight flat piece here. I've got it bolted on here as a fence. Let's see, I need to drop this down just a little bit more to make sure that's going to be, yep, that's far enough. And I'm just going to run this saw right down here and trim this up. I'm going to have to go in a little bit more. I'm not quite getting it all. All right, let's run this down here and see if this will take care of it. All right, we got a nice trimmed up edge there. All our boards are the same length. And with that, I think this table is finished. It's really rock solid, heavy duty, built way better than the one that I took out of here. Now the only problem that I have is, now this one's looking kind of inferior back here. I might have to make a twin to it. It was a good bit of work. I mean, it's just slow, tedious stuff. Nothing terribly difficult, but it just takes time. But yeah, at some point in time, I got enough of this angle iron to make another one. It took, I think, 5 sticks of 20-foot sticks, so 100 foot basically of angle iron, and I got a little bit of scrap left over in there. Maybe a little bit off of each piece, not enough to make a anything on a table, but but a little less than 100 foot of angle iron. Material I had around, all the plywood was material that I had in the shop. Either we salvaged it off the other bench, or I had one little piece I had to get, but I had a piece left over. Really, the only thing I had to buy for this project was the 2x10s I put on the top, and the screws that I used to screw it down, and the leveling feet. I did have to buy those. But all in all, I think that's a major upgrade. And like I said, I think I'll be doing another one at some point in time. All right, so now I'm gonna get this thing loaded back up with all the stuff I took off the other one. I've got all this wood over here that we took apart. All that wood is salvageable. I'll put it back there on my lumber rack and it'll get reused. So yeah, I think this is a major improvement though. I like it. Guys, with that, that's a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. Hit that bell icon up there to get new notifications when new videos are posted. As always, a big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon, PayPal, and YouTube memberships, all of which are great ways to help support my channel or any other YouTube channel that you feel like you get some value out of. If you feel like you're getting value out of the content, consider making a little bit of an extra contribution, because it really does make a difference. And guys, with that, we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, as always, thanks for watching.